Okay. Hello, everybody. How's it going? Hey, Jill.
Hi, Bernadette. How are you?
I'm really well. It's nice to be back. We've had a couple weeks hiatus, but it's nice to be back on the LinkedIn Live Learning channel. Thanks so much for being here. But I'll quickly kind of introduce for everyone out there. Hello, my name is Bernadette Van Giesen, and I am the Growth Marketing Manager here at Stories Inc. Thank you so much for being here. For those of you who are new here, Stories Inc. is a content agency that specializes in employee storytelling. And we love to host these quick, actionable sessions every other Thursday here on LinkedIn. And really just see this as an opportunity to share, our lessons learned and experiences that we gain from partnering with leading employer brand and recruitment marketing organizations. So we love doing these LinkedIn sessions. So quick housekeeping, not much. We're going to do a really casual conversation here between myself and my colleague, Jill Shabelman. Our colleague, Hannah, is going to be working the chat, pointing down to the hypothetical chat down below. But she's going to be sharing links to blog posts, ebooks, resources, things to kind of support the topics that we're talking about today. So if you want to kind of add on to the learning that we're going to be talking about, please use those links to your advantage. And we also love when people are sharing their own experiences, comments, lessons learned in the chat. So please don't be shy down there. I think that's all I got. So I'm pleased to be joined by my colleague, Jill Shabelman, today. She is a Stories Inc. partner. Thanks for being here, Jill. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm excited to be here, and thank you, Hannah, for doing all the links.
Yes, it's a big job. Well, I'm really excited to talk about our topic today. So we are talking about how to engage your talent community with employee story email campaigns. And while I love all of the learning sessions and all the things we do here, I'm excited about this one because we talk a lot about video and we talk about a lot of employee storytelling, but we know that for our recruitment marketing and talent leaders out there, there are a lot of other facets to your content strategy and a lot of other ways that you're engaging with talent. So I'm really excited to dive into a different medium that I don't think we've talked about today, which is that talent community. So just kind of kick things off, Jill, can you just introduce us to what a talent community is and how employer brand recruitment marketing teams would be using that to connect with talent?
Yeah, definitely. I love talent communities, sometimes also called talent networks. When I worked in-house, I helped to build some of these and execute with campaigns, and it really was impactful. And we saw lots of great engagement from candidates from it. So it can be a missed opportunity. So, talent communities are essentially the CRM or customer relationship marketing tool for employer brand and recruitment marketing folks. It's a way for us to have interaction and engagement with candidates who opt in, who say, I'm interested, I want to learn more about your company. And so it's a great way for us to connect with them and to share information.
Yeah, I love that. And I think a really key thing of what you just said there was the opt-in, that these are people who not necessarily are active candidates, but they're active in learning about your organization and they've asked for more information. And one stat that I've seen, I'm blanking on where it came from right now, but that 47% of talent communities don't send any information after that confirmation email. And that's people who have signed up and want to learn more, and then they're not kind of getting what was promised. And just even as marketing best practices, you want to be following through on that. But it's also, as you said, a really missed opportunity. So
Yeah, there's a lot of ghosting, I think, that goes on in talent communities. So
yes, no, absolutely. And do you see this being something that is important, yes, while you're actively hiring, but what does that look like in a market where maybe you don't have a ton of openings right now or things are kind of slowed down? How do you see talent communities operating in that setting?
yeah, I mean, it's the perfect thing to have when you're not actively recruiting or things have slowed down, where you're not in a place where you're just, pushing jobs and trying to get people to apply, but it actually is kind of nice. It's a little bit of downtime to send maybe more meaningful and interesting content to just build a candidate pipeline that will be ready for you, like when you're ready to hire. So I think talent communities are great when you're actively recruiting because you can get people engaged right away, but it's also a great place to build relationships when you're hiring down the road.
Mm-hmm. And I know we're going to be going into a case study later on, but looking at those different call to actions too. So it's like if you're actively hiring, you might be saying like, apply to this job or come to this job fair or things that are very much action oriented. But as you said, I think there's also a lot of room for employer brand awareness and building engagement and just like building that trust and relationship. So I really like that distinction.
Yeah, definitely. And I think a mistake that some organizations may be making is that they're using their talent community contacts as a way to just push jobs. And as you said at the top of the call, talent communities and people who opt in aren't always like ready to make a move right away. And so just sending them a bunch of jobs isn't always the right approach. And so thinking through, these are candidates who are at different stages of a life cycle or a candidate journey. And so thinking about how can you hit on all of those different stages within one email, I think is really important.
Mhm. Okay. So it's a good intro and a really good segue into kind of the next portion of our conversation here. So how do you optimize that talent community? And I know, Jill, when we kind of prepped for this conversation today, we broke it out into 3 segments. So, segments, I gave away the first one, 3 sections. So that first way to optimize is to segment. So looking at your talent community and figuring out how can I split these subscribers into meaningful groups for my organization.
Yep.
Second is then once you have those segments, creating the content, whether that's video and blog, but then putting it into an email that is going to engage with that audience, and then actually building the campaign. And then I would do like a 3B is measuring your impact and trying to see trends in your results. So can you kind of, going back to that first one, can you talk a little bit about segmentation
Yeah.
and the different ways that companies might approach that within their talent communities?
Absolutely. So, oftentimes we see little pop-ups on career site that's, join our talent community or follow us, get updates. And sometimes it's just like your name and your email address. And that's great. But an even more powerful way to do this is to actually ask for a little bit more information. Show things like job category or job skills that someone has, the experience level they have, where they're located, if location and geographical things are important to you. And then trying to get some other demographic information or just information about what they care about will help you create more personalized content. So maybe that's having a list of resource groups that you have within your organization and asking them to select, what are you most interested in learning more about? Or if there's like a deeper dive into a job category that you can go into of, what are you most interested in learning more about? Just a way to give you more to go on. So when you think about the next step of creating personalized content, you have something to go on.
Mhm. No, absolutely. I think that's a great tip. And I mean, I think, well, sometimes as marketers, you're like, oh no, you don't want to ask for so much upfront because you don't want to lose them in the form. But you're really, in the end, it's doing that person a favor, because if they're signing up, and of course, there is a world where you're going to create content that appeals to everyone. But if nothing is personalized to who that person is, that is a way that you're going to be losing interest. So it's doing
Yeah,
both yourself and the candidate benefit in
definitely.
the long run.
And a lot of uses of a talent community are for sourcers to go in and find candidates that may match open positions. So the more information you have from that person, just the greater match can happen. And so I think it's just providing value both to your organization and to the candidate in the long run.
Ooh, I love that tip about sourcers. I had not thought about that. Nice. Okay, so you've segmented your talent community, whatever is meaningful to you. So I think different organizations, you'll have different categories and segmentations. That's important.
Yeah.
And then when you go to create the content and create the campaigns, what you want to think about is, what do these candidates want to hear, right? So is that kind of like a good place to start as you go about creating those personalized content?
Yeah, and a lot of cases you've probably done a lot of the candidate persona work whenever upfront a long time ago, and so you probably have information to draw from. And so as you're building out a strategy for your talent community, it's not only understanding like who do we want in this community, but what will we send them. And so if you're a healthcare organization where nurses are really important to you, it's thinking through that candidate persona. What do they care about? So when I'm building out a content plan, it hits on those things. Or if you're a tech company and you're actively looking for cloud engineers, like what do cloud engineers care about, and building some of that into your content plan. Like you said, you always have evergreen content that can go to everybody, but having at least one, maybe two things in an email that are specific to that audience, I think goes a long way into helping them know that you know who they are.
Mm-hmm. And even going back to, you mentioned sources before. I mean, I think those people who are really tapped into conducting interviews and are talking to these candidates every day will be a good source for those kind of questions too, of
Absolutely.
like, this is what's top of mind. This is what they're thinking about. That is, as you're looking for the topics and what's really hitting with candidates, I think that's a really good partnership to have.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. So, and we're going to get into the content a little bit later too, but so we've talked about segmentation and then creating that personalized content. And then the third section there is distribution. So actually
Yeah.
creating the campaigns. What tips do you have there?
Yeah, I think there's two different ways that you can think about distributing content through a talent community. One is campaign driven. So it could be when you're doing a big hiring push for a new office location, or you're leading up to a big event like Grace Hopper or something like of that nature. You could think about a series of emails that is a campaign focused on a certain talent segment within your community. That's a great way. Another way is just having always on content. And so sending a monthly email, or maybe it's every other month, depending on your bandwidth. But I think having something that is just consistently coming to them is a really important step too. And so you can do both. You can do one, but have a plan. I guess that's the end call here. Have a plan for distribution so that you can also think about how much content you need in order to execute what you're trying to do.
Mhm. Those are really good tips. Awesome. Okay. So, with all of those in mind, I thought it would be fun for us to dig into a case study today. So, it's been, it's always really great to get to partner with our clients to be able to work with something like a talent community. So, I know a recent project that we're excited to talk about is with Intel. And Jill, you were the project manager on this
Yeah.
project. So, can you
Yep.
kind of tee it up a little bit, and we'll then go into some of the specific examples and impact there?
Yeah. So Intel has a very sophisticated recruitment marketing team, and they had looked at their talent community, and they had hundreds of tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands subscribers. I mean, a huge amount of people that were in these talent communities, and they had segment data. So they knew that they could break them into different groups. And so they had a couple of key hiring areas that they really wanted to tap into and do some campaign driven content around. They had a hypothesis that instead of just sending them, some regular Intel content that they would normally push out, that having employee stories and having story driven content in those email campaigns would give them far better results than they could do just sort of on their own. And so that's where we started. So Intel identified these talent categories. We had a few that we were working on, but I think the one we're going to talk about today is early career talent, which was a really fun one. But yeah, I'll stop there and we can keep going.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And just to add a little bit of background there. So we worked on two specific campaigns with Intel within their talent community. But yes, the one that we're going to talk about today is early career talent. And just to kind of add some numbers to what Jill said there, Intel had more than 100,000 early career talent community subscribers. That was a long adjective there, but that's a lot of people who had raised their hand and opted in as early career. And Intel wasn't doing a lot around sharing culture content, and they really wanted to test that hypothesis, as you said.
Yeah.
So once they had that segmentation identified, from there, the next step was creating that personalized content. So I know this is where Stories Inc. came in to
Yeah.
play. So can you kind of tell us, how many interviews were conducted? What was kind of the approach to creating the content for this?
Sure. So, in kicking off the project, we did a lot of chatting about, what themes were important to early career talent at Intel and then just in general. And so there were three things that we thought would be great to share content around. And that was the global exposure that you could get at a career at Intel, that there are so many different ways to launch a career. They have so many different opportunities. And so wanted to share that early career talents coming in at all different parts of the business. And then that in your role, regardless of how long you've been there, you have opportunities to innovate and really make a significant impact in the business. So, to all of these, we interviewed 11 different employees from around the world, again, to get that global exposure. So, people in the US, in Mexico, in Poland, in China, Israel, sort of all over the place, so that we could really get a good cross section of what it looked like to be an early career individual professional at Intel around the world. And so that was really fun to do that. We did interviews both in English and then also in native languages. And so that helped also Intel be able to activate different content that was really personalized for someone in Poland when the person in a video is speaking Polish. And so we did a lot of that work too to make sure that this had as far of a reach as it could.
Mhm. That's awesome. And then we're going to get into the content creation a little bit here. So, after conducting all of those interviews, and these interviews were conducted virtually, right?
Yes. Yep.
Um, Stories Inc., we then take those stories back to our wheelhouse here and then create the content from there. So, this Intel project had a really wide mix of content mediums, which I think was one of the reasons why the campaign was so successful. And so we went in and created videos, we created blog posts, and then Intel identified early on that they really wanted interactive digital content to be able
Yeah.
to engage in a unique way with this audience. So can you tell us a little bit more about
Yeah.
those? Yeah.
Yeah, we love when our clients wanna do something fun and different and unique, and so it's a way for us to really expand the storytelling content we get. So, as you said, we did videos and blogs, which, are pretty standard ways to distribute employee stories, but we also created an interactive quiz, and so from all of the content we gathered in these interviews, we came up with a quiz to help someone identify what type of Intel innovator could they be, and so we used a lot of the employee story content that we got to help create this quiz, and at the end of the quiz, you would get, you're like so and so, you're this type of Intel innovator. And so to give people a chance to see like where they could fit in the organization. And then, yeah,
I thought it'd be fun. We can go through this
yeah,
quiz
let's show it.
real
Cool.
quick. Yeah. So it's just a page on their website that you can access just going through the early careers kind of journey of their career site. And so as you can see, it says at Intel, you can solve unique problems. Some of the best technologists in the industry. We're curious, what type of Intel innovator are you? And so you can start here. And it's just a couple questions. So in the next 5 years, you'd rather, let's say, try different roles. You just joined a new company to begin building a network. You're more likely to, so this kind of gets into what type of person you are and how you like to build relationships. So joining multiple groups and clubs or reaching out to someone who interviewed you and set up a one-on-one meeting. Let's say join multiple groups and clubs. And then when faced with a new challenge, you're more likely to go to videos, books, and blogs to learn more, or reach out to a mentor or colleague to ask for their guidance. So also looking to how you learn and how you look to grow your skill set. Let's say videos. And then dun, da, 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 you are an Intel innovator. So in this instance, my innovation style is like Clarissa's. And so we have a quote from her that's from the interviews that we did. So you're always ready for the next challenge. And then we have a quote here. So she says, as part of the sales marketing rotation program, I had 3 different roles at Intel before committing to a full-time position. I also volunteer to help young students learn about STEM so they can realize opportunities they never thought were possible. So just a short, fun quiz, but really at the end, connecting it back to that personal level. And this is someone who thinks like you, innovates like you, and then what their experience has been at Intel. So I think that's a really fun way to incorporate stories.
Yeah, it definitely was. And then the second thing we did, we created a digital story map. And so, like I mentioned, we interviewed people all around the world, and we wanted to show that in a way that was not just, you know, listed on a website of just different videos, but this is a way that we actually took people around the world to hear different experiences from folks at Intel.
Mm-hmm. No, yes. And again, I have the story map up here, but also just something that's hosted in their website that you can get through the early career section of their website. You can see once you click through here that it kind of takes you to different parts of the world. So this is in Arizona. So this is an area where Intel has a large presence, and you'd be able to watch a video about an early career team member there, Latoya. And then you can continue to click through, and you can also look to what the early career experience is like in Bangalore, India. And I think this was a text-based story. Yeah, so this one was a text-based as opposed to video. So being able to use different mediums to get that story across. And then we're in Mexico. This one was a video. And then in China. So this story is an example. This was something that was created in the native language. So I think especially if someone's looking and they are in the Chinese market, just hearing a story in the language that they use every day is another way to build that connection. So just another fun way to take the same stories and be able to distribute them in a different medium.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if you want to share any of the videos or blogs or anything else in terms of content creation and before we talk about how we brought it all together.
Yes, no, thanks for the segue. But yes, so we'll share one video here, and it speaks to one of the themes that Jill said at earlier in the conversation of what Intel was looking to get across, but just that there's many ways to build a career at Intel. And this one is a story from Latoya, and it's her experience about building a network. So I'll cue that one up here.
This was my first job right out of college, and my team was very helpful with getting me started. They really worked to make sure that we had the resources that we needed. I'm also a part of the network of Intel African Ancestry. I attended one of their events 3 days into my career at Intel, and I was able to meet some friends that I still have to this day. Some of these people have been at the company for years, where some of them have been at the company for months. This is a great way to network, as well as just feeling more a part of a bigger picture.
And I will say that experience of her attending a resource group meeting 3 days into her career was not unique to Latoya. I feel like we heard that over and over again of people having opportunities to go to meetings or connect with a mentor like very early on. And so that was a theme that we definitely wanted to get across.
No, absolutely. And I think that's something that when you think about the early career candidate, that's a burning question that a lot of people have is, how am I going to be able to build relationships? How am I going to be able to find a mentor, make friends, like just build a work life? So I think that kind of story really goes a long way and shows that this is something that people are able to do somewhat easily if you're hearing it from multiple people too.
Yep.
Awesome. So that's just, kind of a quick look at some of the different types of content that Intel created to be able to build this talent community campaign. So you have the content pieces, but then of course the steps that go into actually building the email campaigns. So Jill, can you tell us a little bit more about what that campaign looked like?
Yeah, so we took all of those different pieces and thought about those 3 themes again: global exposure, ways to launch a career, and opportunities to innovate, and created a 3-series email campaign around those themes. And so each email was an introduction to that theme idea and also linked to relevant videos, to blog posts, and then to these interactive experiences. And so those 3 emails went out over a random over time. Sorry.
Yeah.
Got stuck there. Over a course of a month, 2 months to, help to drive candidate interest in early careers. So.
That's great. Yeah. And I think it's worth noting, and I mean, you mentioned that, but that having the different mediums, I think, is one of the reasons why the campaign was so successful. So there's some people who they like to watch videos. There's some people that would prefer to read something. And so I think having those different mediums available, when you open that email, you can kind of choose your own adventure once you're in there and kind of, so regardless, you'll find something that'll work for your viewing style.
Yeah. And so there were, obviously links off to content, and then also opportunities to search and apply for jobs. And also something that Intel did for all of the email campaigns we worked on them was also to offer people a chance to update their profile. So someone could have joined this talent community years ago, and obviously their experience and what they're interested in could have changed. And so a call to action that was pretty consistent throughout was to update your profile, which again gives the Intel team members an opportunity to find matches with candidates in open roles as well. And so a call to action doesn't always have to be applying to jobs. It could be viewing this content, and it could be something as simple as updating your profile in the talent community.
That's a great tip. Okay, so and then we do have the results, which are always fun to share. I think sometimes in the employer brand world, it's always sometimes hard to see the hard data when it comes to the impact of your work. So it's always nice when you're able to see some numbers. So this campaign was sent to 118,000 early career professionals, and Intel measured the impact based on benchmark data that their CRM associates with talent communities. And so the campaign averaged a 50% open rate, which the benchmark is 25%. So that's double the benchmark data. And the idea of half the people that you're sending it to opening it is just very compelling. The interactive quiz was taken more than 1,300 times, and the campaign drove more than 25,000 clicks, which just is so much engagement and so many people seeing the content, engaging with the career site. A lot to work with there. And then love seeing this, that it was the most successful email campaign in 2022 in terms of the talent emails that Intel was sending out. So, and that success was measured by the number of applications driven. So as you said, Jill, it's not the only call to action. It's not the only thing that came out of this campaign, but it's nice to see that it did turn into qualified people applying for jobs for Intel.
Yeah, absolutely. And do we have an example of the blog post we could show just so people can see how things kind of came to life?
Let's see. How about while you kind of take us home and wrap us up a little bit, I will pull it up.
Yeah, no problem. Great. So, as we talked about, there's lots of compelling reasons to build a talent community and communicate with them. And it can be, though, a big undertaking. And so it's really, I think, important to start with the strategy in mind of what are you trying to achieve? How are you trying to communicate? How will you personalize content so that you've got a plan going in? And then that helps segmenting at the front end easier too, to think about, how do you want to communicate with people in the future so that you've got the right segments coming in. And then, with most talent marketing content, we strongly believe that stories really are the thing that resonate most. And so thinking about in your email campaigns, in your talent community communications, how can you bring in real employee experiences to show, not tell, about what someone could expect with a career at your company?
Mm-hmm. And here's an example of one of the blog posts here. So the title of this post is How Intel Early and Career Professionals Are Changing Tech. And so having those photos at the top of real early career team members who we interviewed, but represent the early career experience at Intel, and then just their stories shared throughout. So,
Awesome.
yep, so you can see a lot of quotes here. So talking about improving safety and just how they feel like they're able to see the impact of their work and that they're making a difference.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I just think it's so important to hear from real people in the communications we send. So
Absolutely. And then it's like when you look at something like the themes that Intel identified, I think there obviously are other companies out there that also offer a global experience and also have purposeful work. So then you go a step further to say, what does it look like here and what is unique about working here? And by having the actual stories from team members, that really is what sets it apart.
absolutely. And I think, another important piece of this is, again, these are big undertakings to do things like this, but we interviewed 11 people and created all of this content, tons of videos, blog posts, these interactive tools, these email campaigns. You can do a lot with a little in terms of number of interviews and trying to get some story content going. And so as you think about a strategy like this of using employee story content in a talent community communication plan, you don't have to go interview 100 people. Start with a few and get some content rolling and then, go from there. So I think there's lots of ways to use a small number of people to get a huge quantity of content.
Absolutely. And even just starting with a segment too. You don't need to do, if you identify, you have 10 different job categories and then you have other key talent categories that you talk to, that's 20 different groups that ideally you'd want to create personalized content for. You don't have to do every single one in 8 weeks. And you're not going to be able to do it. That's really, really, really hard. So I think just focusing on one or two and then just focusing on, I can interview 10 people and then create a really great campaign. Just taking actionable bites at creating this strategy.
That's a great point. And then you see what works for you. So doing this maybe start with one campaign, one talent segment, 3 emails, and see what works, see what people are interacting with and what feels important to them, so that as you build out plans for that talent segment and others going forward, you have some lessons learned and can think about where do you really want to spend your time in terms of content creation so that you're getting the greatest impact.
Awesome. I think that's a great way to wrap it up. Any other final thoughts, Jill?
I guess the one is just don't ghost people. Don't be silent. A lot. I mean, gosh, how many times do you join something and that you are spammed? We don't want to go that far, but you want to, communicate with people. They're obviously opting in for a reason. So, find a way to communicate with them on some regular cadence so that they feel like they're getting something out of that relationship.
I think that's a great way to close it out. If anyone has any questions about talent communities or creating employee stories for talent communities, please don't hesitate to get in touch. We'll drop the link to our website and how to get in touch there. Other than that, if you like content like this, please follow Stories Inc. on LinkedIn. We have these events usually every other Thursday, but we're actually having one next Thursday. We are doing a session with James Ellis. If anyone out there is a fan of his, we're really excited to do a session with him. So please sign up, subscribe, and we would love to see you back here soon.
That will be a very full conversation of real talk. I'm excited for that one.
Yes, it will be. Okay, great. Thanks, Jill.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.